Let's say you want to take your money that you have invested in a fund. You want to take all of it out, but you only get 45% of it. Would that be okay with you? I'd say most people will say no. But what we're finding out now is that it's gotten even worse. Moody's is actually having one company downgraded to junk status. We're close to it. So let's talk about what's happening and how this can affect your retirement, your job, and your financial future. So we're going to talk about the latest that's happening with private credit, what's going on with this downgrade, and how it affects your money and what potentially you can do about this. So let's talk first about Apollo. And I don't personally know this company, I have no connection to it. So we're going off of what Reuters and CNBC has said about this. So Apollo is a $25 billion private credit fund. They have capped withdrawals. Now, usually the fund only allows about 5% withdrawals quarterly. The people who have their money there should really know that. They keep the rest locked up because they don't want to run on it because then the fund's just going to collapse, right? But investors want it out faster than they really could. So in order to do that, you can't get everything you wanted, but you can get about 45% of it. So even if you want your money, you can't get it. They're not saying that there's a problem with the fund or that they don't technically have the money, but this is the way they do this. So that's where we are with Apollo. That's discouraging because we've had that happening with some other funds recently. This is just another one in the line. But here's the catch. Moody's has now downgraded a private credit fund tied to KKR and Future Standard. Never heard of them. Maybe they're a smaller fund. I really don't know. But it said it lost its investment grade rating and is now drifting towards junk status. So Moody says this is alarming because the funds are highly leveraged, hard to value. They don't share any of their information. These aren't like private stocks. They don't share. So, of course, they're hard to value. Plus, they're built on riskier loans than advertised. We kind of had that problem back in 2008 when, they said, oh, it's AAA rated for all of these secured mortgages that are put together. But guess what? They weren't. They put the crap in there too, and everything collapsed. But it was really just the home buyers who decided they were going to lie on their mortgage applications and get risky loans. Let's blame the people when we know what was happening. Anyway, I digress. So the exact same money that's getting locked inside of these funds and you can't get it out are also being now tied to riskier loans that aren't really worth anything. So I feel so bad for the people who have invested their money here thinking they were going to get a return and might end up getting screwed. All right, now let's talk about what's happening with a private credit. They're actually making riskier loans to private companies. So a couple of things here. The loans, they don't trade easily, obviously. This isn't like stocks on the stock market, and they aren't priced like stocks. So it's kind of hard to figure out where you stand. So with this, once fear starts hitting, and we're getting that with the kind of downfall that we've had between issues with other companies, think of like the Blue Owl that's been happening recently. Well, people get spooked, and when they get spooked, they want to take their money out. So once they rush to do that, well, now the fund has to sell assets in order to give the money back to the people. Well, it depends on what kind of assets you have, and they don't all sell quickly. So it makes it very difficult. Now, what we've seen somewhat recently is that gold started to go down. Well, people are thinking, oh, well, that's kind of odd, gold shouldn't be going down right now. Well, yeah, it should, because funds like this need to sell the gold because it's an asset they have so that they can then go pay off on the other end. So that's why gold goes down, because you have more people trying to sell off to accommodate, either paying out on the funds or whatever they have to do. Maybe they have actual loans themselves that need to be satisfied, which means you've got to come up with the money from somewhere. So if they're holding anything like gold or silver, those commodities end up getting sold. So now the rating agencies are starting to catch on to this. I guess maybe they realized last time they didn't catch on so fast, and then they even tried to deny that they had any hand in it. Probably don't want to get stuck in that again. Now, some of the safer looking funds they think might actually be closer to junk status. So they're just being packaged differently so that they look pretty. But really, what this comes down to is that there is going to be a liquidity crisis with this. So if they can't sell off what they need to in order to satisfy what's being taken out, we start to run into problems. They start to run into problems, and then everything kind of collapses. So, why should you really care about this fund? Okay, private credit now has exploded to being a $1 to $2 trillion market. Think about that, $1 to $2 trillion, and these aren't regulated very well. So, this is what's disturbing is that now this private credit is actually tied to things like pension funds, insurance companies, retirement accounts. People every day don't even realize that they have any kind of connection to this. So, two big warning things are happening. People can't get their money out, huge red flag, and assets may be riskier in these funds than expected. So, that combination with it being illiquid, meaning you can't just get the cash right, easily, and the risky assets in it mean that this is where financial problems start and where all of the cracks can be seen in what it could do to the economy as a whole, which comes to what this really truly means for you. So, if you have a 401k, an IRA, pension, you could be really exposed to this and you don't know. If there is a way for you to look at what funds you're invested in, you got to see where you stand with that. Sometimes, with companies that you work for, you have no control over what's happening with your money. It goes into these investments and retirement accounts and they handle it for you. So you might have no clue if you actually have money that's safe or not. So try to figure out anything you can and try to find some kind of diversification. I am not a CPA. I don't know. I'm not a financial advisor. I know enough to tell you that you should be looking at these things and going to them and say, hey, these are my concerns, and let them figure it out for you, tell you where you should go, and then go from there. So if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you're like, yeah, I don't have any of that. I'd love to have savings, but I don't. Okay, this is what I want you to do. First off, we are going to try to put a little bit of money aside. We are going to strengthen what we do for work. Anything you can, because when all the credit markets start falling, well, small companies can't get access to the credit that keeps them actually functioning and flowing, which means more layoffs occur. So you need to be sure that you can actually stay at that job or have enough skills to go somewhere else if your company goes under, because that's probably the real risk. Not that you're the problem, that the company you work for is the problem. So let's try to hedge off on any of the layoffs. So one thing to really think about here is that anytime funds start drying up on Wall Street, that means that jobs dry up on Main Street, right? We see that. We've seen it time and time again. So a lot of times it's not until everything goes absolutely crazy that people are like, oh, I should try to find a better job or protect myself. So pay attention now, protect yourself now. What you can do, we're going to look for any kind of exposure that you have to private credit through any of those investment accounts if you possibly can. We're going to try to stay as liquid as you can, have some cash on hand, and be cautious of anything that says it's got high returns. It's probably private credit, and we don't need you getting screwed. Okay, we are going to prioritize the emergency savings. No new high interest debts. We're going to look for any kind of job stability that we can have. Work on new skills. Anywhere you can, work on getting some new skills. So I really want to be sure that anybody who can take care of themselves now is going to do that. So right now, what we know is that investors thought they were in safe funds. They're probably not. And there's probably more than just this Apollo and this KKR that are going through this. We are for sure going to hear of more of this. In the fall, Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan Chase said, when there's one cockroach, there's more. They've also had some issues with connections to them. This is huge and it's going to get bigger as more of a light is being shined on it. So, Renegades, I want to know, do you feel that this is the early stages of something bigger, or is it something that is contained and is going to go away? Drop your thoughts below. And if you want more information and find out how this actually affects you, just subscribe to the Renegade Report. And until next time, think differently, take control, be a renegade. I'll see you in the next video.